Hi, I'm Shannon, and I have 3 tips for watering, quite a few reasons we should prune our plants or give them haircuts, and what for me has been the biggest cornerstone of meal prep. But first, we're going to get started with these haircuts. So, I love a bob, I love a blunt cut, but aside from aesthetic reasons, it's also really good to give your trailing plants, your vining plants, a haircut because it's going to give you ramification. And really all that means is that you're going to get more branching, more subdivisions. So instead of the one long vine that you just trimmed off, it's going to take the energy that the plant was putting into that vine and send it back to the top of the plant. Or at a minimum, it's going to send it above where you cut it so that you get a full plant. This Micans is a great example. Really full up top, kind of scraggly at the bottom. I trim all that off because the goal for me is to get this fullness to reach the floor. Another method we have when we're pruning bonsai trees is going to be called air layering. Now, air layering simply means that we're going to grow roots into a medium before we cut that branch off. I'm using sphagnum moss, and this is a great way to make a tree quickly from a tree you already have. In bonsai, pruning is a big part of how we shape the plant into the vision, that we have for it. Now, we never want to prune a plant that isn't healthy and resilient enough to take a pruning because it is damaging to the plant. But if you prune routinely at a rate that the plant can take, you will avoid having to make big cuts later, which take longer to heal and tend to leave really big scars. So after a pruning, you can tend to look like you just got a stick in a pot, but spring is coming. Spring is coming. Don't mind the mess. There is Pax being a good boy. So we're going to run downstairs, and I believe I have one more vine I want to cut. Yep, this right here, my neon philodendron, and snip. All done. I brought one plant from upstairs just to fill in my planter in the corner a little bit. And now I'm just going to go ahead and sit down because I am a millennial and my back hurts. My poor oxalis. I tried everything, but I just had to go ahead and cut it all the way back. It's for the best. I got this adorable little mame pot because I realized the oxalis is a plant I enjoyed most when it's in a tiny little planter like this. So I got a new one, and I really am looking forward to seeing this sprout up and hopefully give me some kind of Dr. Seussian vibe of a forest, but in a tiny little pot with purple top trees. I'm going into the backyard because while we're getting to the end of winter, heading into spring, trimming now is a great way to control where you want that first flush of spring growth to go. If you trim now, you will avoid trimming off branches that maybe were tiny shoots in the winter. They grow very quickly in the spring. So pruning those back, getting rid of any big branches that you have determined you don't want, will let the plant put the energy where you do want it. And again, it'll heal all these wounds much faster. But we're all done with trimming, pruning, running around. We're going to slow things down with some tips for watering. I unfortunately have killed many a plant because of overwatering. And I think a big part of that was that I didn't understand what I now know is the biggest and most important thing, and that's lighting. We need to understand how much light and what direction the light is coming from, because it's going to be a big, if not the biggest factor in the demand that the plant has for water. I have listed the light in descending order from strongest, being south facing, or light you're getting from the south, to north, which is going to be the weakest. So a plant sitting directly in a south facing window is likely going to need to be watered more often versus a plant sitting in a north facing window. These are all generalities though, because there's other factors to consider. The next thing you want to think about is the pot size. So the pot size, as you see, my oxalis has sprouted up in its small mame pot. A small pot like this is going to need to be watered a lot more frequently. versus big planters like the ones I have my Dracaenas and my Bird of Paradise in. Much more expansive root system, and if the plant has been watered thoroughly, you shouldn't need to water a planter this size as frequently. With that being said, because the planter is so large, it's gonna be a bit more difficult to determine when the planter is fully dry or needs to be watered, which is why I recommend let them dry out sometimes. I'm not saying that you have to let the plants, get powdery dry, but if you occasionally err on the dry side, I think it'll be for the better. Plants can come back from getting a little dry. It's very difficult to come back from root rot. I love having them chase me around. Now, meal prep. And a bit of musings. Meal prep it's always a struggle, right? Because life is always lifing. It's the routine that is great when you knock it out the park, but then when you don't, things are just, But the cornerstone that has helped me most with meal prep is having a go-to protein recipe. And for us, that's going to be chicken. Making sure on the weeks that I do meal prep, I've made chicken or some protein helps a lot. Another thing that has helped is adding something like broccoli or a veggie to the pan. That way I've knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone. We have our protein and we have some fiber. While that cooks, I'm thinking how I got here. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school because for all the plants I have, money grows on none of them. After that, I went to college. I was a banker for a little while, and this was all so I could be a nurse. And I was so excited, and I am so excited to be a nurse. There is nothing like taking care of a child that couldn't breathe on their own, couldn't eat on their own. And one day you see them run across a playground screaming at the top of their lungs, and you know that you did that. You helped this little person go off and get to live their life. There's nothing like that feeling. But even with that feeling, none of the things I've done are artistic. And that's what I've always wanted to do. At the same time, I wanted to assure my own security, my family's security. So that even if I never made any money doing whatever this is, it would be okay. Thank you for watching.